What if the people judging you are stealing your peace right now? In the next few minutes, discover the Stoic power to ignore them.
Imagine for a moment that you stand alone in the quiet dawn of your own life, the world still shrouded in the soft grey before light breaks. You've just woken from a restless night, your mind tangled in the words of others, whispers from colleagues who question your choices, echoes from friends who pull you toward their own paths, the subtle judgments in a stranger's glance that linger like uninvited guests. In that fragile hour, you feel the weight of it all pressing in, not with force, but with a persistent murmur that threatens to drown your own voice. What if, instead of yielding, you chose to let those voices fade into the mist? What if ignoring them wasn't indifference, but the quiet assertion of your inner sovereignty? This is the subtle art we often overlook, the power that lies in turning away from the noise to face the truth within. It begins not in grand gestures, but in the small, deliberate acts of a life reclaiming itself. Consider the man who once walked these same shadowed paths, a figure not unlike you or me, drawn from the fabric of everyday existence. His name was Aurelius, a craftsman in a bustling ancient city, where the markets hummed with the ceaseless barter of goods and opinions alike. Aurelius had built his life around the forge, hammering iron into tools that others wielded. Yet he found himself shaped more by the expectations of those around him than by his own hands. His neighbors spoke of ambition, urging him to expand his trade, to seek favor from the wealthy patrons who paraded through the streets. His family whispered of security, pressing him to marry into alliances that promised stability but chained the soul. And in the tavern's dim light, friends debated philosophies they half understood, pulling him into arguments that left him drained, his thoughts scattered like sparks from the anvil. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows over the cobblestone paths, Aurelius sat by his forge, the embers glowing faintly. He had just endured a day where a patron's complaint had unraveled his composure, a minor flaw in a blade, magnified into a personal failing by the man's sharp tongue. The words replayed in his mind, each one a barb hooking deeper into his resolve. Why did he allow it? Why did the opinions of others hold such sway, dictating his mood like the wind bends a reed? In that moment of exhaustion, a quiet realization stirred, born not from revelation but from the weariness of constant reaction. He recalled the teachings of the Stoics, fragments he'd overheard from wandering philosophers in the Agora words about controlling what is within one's power, about the fortress of the mind that no external force can breach unless invited. Aurelius began to experiment, tentatively at first, with this notion of selective disregard. The next morning, when a neighbor approached with unsolicited advice on his craft, he nodded politely but let the words pass through him like smoke from the forge, dissipating without trace. No argument, no defense, just a calm continuation of his work. The neighbor, expecting engagement, faltered and moved on, leaving Aurelius with an unexpected sense of space. It was as if a door had opened within him, revealing a chamber untouched by the clamor outside. This wasn't coldness, it was preservation, a deliberate choice to conserve his energy for what truly mattered, the shaping of his own character, the refinement of his skills. As days turned to weeks, Aurelius noticed how this practice rippled through his life. In the market, where vendors vied for attention with exaggerated claims, he learned to ignore the hype, focusing instead on the quality of the goods before him. His purchases became wiser, his resources better allocated. At home, when family gatherings devolved into debates over trivial matters, he withdrew his participation not in anger, but in quiet resolve, turning his thoughts inward to reflect on his own path. The silence he offered wasn't empty, it was filled with the growing strength of self-mastery. He began to see that ignoring people wasn't about dismissing their humanity, but about honoring his own. It required discipline, a steady hand on the reins of emotion, to resist the pull of reaction. Yet this path was not without its trials. Aurelius found that the world pushes back when one steps away from its dance. Friends grew distant, interpreting his reserve as aloofness. Patrons sought other craftsmen, mistaking his focus for disinterest. In these moments, doubt crept in, whispering that perhaps connection demanded constant engagement. But Aurelius pressed on, drawing from the Stoic well of resilience. He reminded himself that true bonds form not from obligatory responses but from shared authenticity. By ignoring the superficial, he invited deeper connections, those rare souls who respected his boundaries and met him in mutual silence or meaningful exchange. The emotional undercurrent began to shift, a subtle tension building as Aurelius confronted the isolation that sometimes accompanied this power. There were nights when the forge felt emptier, the absence of chatter amplifying his inner voice. What secrets might that voice reveal if he listened fully? What strengths lay dormant, waiting to be forged in solitude? This curiosity pulled him forward, layer by layer, into a deeper introspection. He started journaling in the evenings, not grand treatises, but simple notations of the day's distractions ignored, and the clarity gained. Each entry built upon the last, a testament to the compounding force of discipline. In time, Elias's work improved, his blades sharper, his designs more innovative, unburdened by the weight of external validation. He moved through the city with a calm authority, his steps measured, his gaze steady. People began to notice not his withdrawal, but the quiet power it emanated, a man in control of his domain. This was the beginning of his transformation, a journey where ignoring others became the key to unlocking his potential. But as with all true paths, it demanded more than initial resolve. It required sustained focus, a commitment to inner control amid the ever-present temptations of the world. The narrative deepened as Elias encountered a mentor, an elder Stoic named Lucius, who wandered into his shop one rainy afternoon. Lucius, with his weathered face and unhurried demeanor, observed Elias at work without a word. When Elias finally acknowledged him, Lucius spoke simply, "You hammer the iron, but do you shape your thoughts with the same precision?" Their conversations unfolded gradually, Lucius sharing insights from Aurelius, himself meditations on the transience of opinion, the futility of chasing approval. "The crowd's praise is but wind," Lucius would say. "It fills sails but scatters without direction." Elias absorbed these lessons, applying them to the forge of his daily life. One such application came during a festival where the city swelled with revelers. Amid the throng, old acquaintances pulled at him, urging participation in games and debates. Elias felt the familiar tug, the emotional pull of belonging. Yet he chose to ignore, slipping away to a quiet hillside overlooking the lights. There, in solitude, he reflected on the day's events, dissecting his impulses with philosophical rigor. Why did the crowd's energy tempt him? What void within sought filling from without? These questions layered his self-awareness, building a resilient core. As the seasons changed, Elias's practice evolved. Ignoring became not just a shield, but a tool for focus. He directed his energies toward mastering new techniques in his craft, ignoring distractions that once derailed him. The emotional intensity grew, a quiet fire kindling as he realized the responsibility he held for his own happiness. No longer did he blame others for his unrest, instead he owned it, transforming it through discipline. This shift brought a profound sense of freedom, yet it also heightened the stakes, for with power comes the weight of wielding it wisely. Elias's journey pressed onward, the lessons from Lucius embedding deeper into his being like roots seeking soil. The hillside reflection had unveiled a truth. Ignoring people was not mere avoidance, but an act of profound responsibility toward oneself. In the forge's heat, as he shaped metal, he began to see parallels in shaping his responses or lack thereof. Each ignored slight, each bypassed argument, was a deliberate stroke, refining the blade of his character. But the world, ever insistent, tested this resolve in subtler ways. A merchant from a neighboring town arrived one day, bearing tales of opportunity. He spoke of partnerships that could elevate Elias's trade, weaving words of promise with threads of obligation. "Join us," he urged, "and your name will echo in halls of influence." Elias listened, his hands steady on the anvil, but inwardly he weighed the merchant's intent against his own path. The temptation was real, the allure of expansion, the subtle ego stroke of recognition. Yet he sensed the hidden chains, commitments that would scatter his focus, dilute his mastery. With calm authority he declined, ignoring the merchant's protests as one ignores a passing storm. The man left frustrated, but Elias felt only the quiet surge of inner control. This encounter stirred memories of earlier days when such offers would have ensnared him, leading to overextension and regret. Now, in ignoring, he preserved his essence, channeling energy into what truly built him. Friends noticed the change, some drifting away, others drawing closer in admiration of his poise. One evening by the fire with Lucius, Elias shared his doubts. "Does this path isolate me from the warmth of human connection?" Lucius, gazing into the flames, replied thoughtfully, "Connection without self-mastery is illusion. True bonds thrive in the space you create by ignoring the trivial." Inspired, Elias extended his practice to familial ties. His sister, ever vocal about his solitary ways, visited with concerns masked as care. "You must engage more," she insisted, "lest you become forgotten." Her words carried emotional weight, laced with shared history. Elias felt the pull, the quiet ache of kinship. Yet he chose silence, responding with actions rather than words, helping her with a task, sharing a meal in companionable quiet. By ignoring the pressure to conform, he honored their bond on his terms, fostering a deeper resilience. The tension built, not in conflict, but in the introspective space where he questioned, "What fears drive her words? What strengths emerge from my restraint?" As weeks unfolded, Elias's craft flourished, his pieces sought for their integrity rather than flash. He ignored the envy of rivals, focusing instead on innovation born of solitude. This discipline bred emotional strength, a layered fortitude that withstood the subtle erosions of daily life. Curiosity arose in him: how far could this power extend? In the marketplace, amid haggling voices, he practiced selective hearing, tuning into only what served his purpose. The result: sharper decisions, unclouded by noise. But challenges mounted, testing the depth of his philosophy. A betrayal by a trusted apprentice, words spoken behind his back, undermining his reputation, struck like a hidden flaw in iron. Elias learned of it through whispers, the sting sharp in its unexpectedness. Anger flickered, the urge to confront strong. Yet he paused, reflecting on Stoic wisdom. Others' actions are theirs, your response is yours. Ignoring the impulse to retaliate, he addressed the issue quietly, focusing on correction rather than vengeance. The apprentice, expecting outburst, found instead a model of composure, planting seeds of growth in both. This incident deepened the emotional undercurrent, a gradual intensification as Elias confronted the vulnerability beneath his strength. Ignoring demanded not numbness, but acute awareness of self, of others' motivations. In quiet evenings he meditated on this, his thoughts a calm stream navigating rocks of doubt. The narrative flowed onward, his life a testament to lived wisdom, where each ignored distraction built toward greater focus. Lucius, sensing Elias's progress, shared more rigorous insights. "Silence is the guardian of the soul," he said, drawing from Aurelius's meditations. "In ignoring, you reclaim time, the most precious resource." Elias applied this to his routines, ignoring idle chatter to immerse in study, reading scrolls on philosophy by lamplight. The philosophical depth grew, layering introspection with practical application. He began to see ignoring as a form of emotional alchemy, transmuting reactivity into resilience. Yet the world persisted. During a drought that strained the city, neighbors turned fractious, blaming one another. Elias, unaffected by the blame games, focused on solutions, sharing water wisely, ignoring accusations. His calm became a beacon, drawing others to emulate. The tension heightened, a quiet motivational force urging him toward mastery. What if this power could transform not just his life, but ripple outward? In reflection, Elias journaled, "Ignoring is not rejection, but selection of what nourishes the spirit." This mindset fostered discipline, his days structured around purposeful action. Emotional intelligence bloomed, allowing him to discern when to engage, when to withdraw. The story continued, building toward peaks of self-discovery, each step a deliberate stride in the journey of inner control. The drought lingered, testing the city's endurance, and in its grip, Elias's practice of ignoring evolved into a profound anchor. As resources dwindled, tempers flared, arguments over wells, accusations flying like dry leaves in the wind. Elias, drawing water for his forge, overheard barbs directed at him, the craftsman hoards for himself. The words carried the weight of collective frustration, tempting a defensive retort. Yet he ignored, carrying his bucket with steady gait, his mind fixed on the tasks ahead. This restraint wasn't effortless, it required the discipline of a warrior in repose, channeling energy inward rather than scattering it in futile defense. In the solitude of his workshop, Elias reflected on this choice. Why did the crowd's unrest seek to unsettle him? It stemmed, he realized, from their own inner turmoil projected outward. By ignoring, he refused to adopt their chaos, preserving his equilibrium. Lucius, visiting amid the parched days, nodded approval. Aurelius taught that we are disturbed not by events, but by our judgments of them. Ignoring reshapes those judgments, forging resilience. Their discussions deepened, exploring the Stoic dichotomy of control, what lies within, like thoughts and actions, versus the external, like others' opinions. Elias applied this rigorously. When a council meeting convened to allocate water, Voices clashed in heated debate. Invited. To speak, he chose brevity, offering practical suggestions without engaging in the fray. Ignoring the interruptions, he spoke with calm authority, his words landing like measured strikes. The assembly, surprised by his poise, listened. Not all agreed, but his focus cut through the noise, influencing outcomes subtly. This experience layered his philosophical depth, revealing ignoring as a tool for influence not through dominance, but through exemplary self-mastery. Emotional tension built as Elias navigated personal strains. His sister returned, burdened by the drought's toll on her family. "You must help more," she pleaded, her eyes reflecting shared hardship. The plea tugged at familial bonds, stirring empathy. Yet Elias discerned the underlying demand for emotional surrender to absorb her anxiety. With gentle firmness, he assisted practically but ignored the pull to overextend, maintaining boundaries. "I aid as I can," he said quietly, "but my strength serves us all when preserved." This interaction heightened the introspection, questioning, how does one balance compassion with self-preservation? Curiosity drove him deeper. In evenings, as stars pierced the dry sky, Elias pondered silence's role in character building. Ignoring chatter allowed space for contemplation, where ideas fermented into wisdom. He experimented, spending days in near solitude focusing on intricate designs. The results, creations of enduring quality, symbols of his inner growth. Friends who remained marveled, drawn to his quiet power. One confided, "Your silence teaches more than words." This affirmation fueled the motivational force, a subtle energy propelling him, but trials intensified. A rival craftsman, envious, spread rumors of Elias's selfishness amid the crisis. Whispers reached patrons, threatening his livelihood. The sting was sharper now, touching the core of his identity. Doubt surfaced. Was ignoring cowardice? Lucius countered. "Resilience shines in adversity. Respond with actions that embody your principles." Elias ignored the gossip, redoubling efforts in his work. Patrons, observing his consistency, returned, valuing integrity over hearsay. This victory deepened engagement, the narrative weaving tighter as emotional layers accumulated, philosophical rigor mounted. Elias delved into Aurelius's ideas on the transience of fame and blame. All his opinion, he internalized, using it to fortify his mind. In market encounters, he ignored bartering ploys, negotiating from strength. The emotional intelligence grew, discerning motives beneath words. Tension rose gradually, a cinematic calm underscoring the journey's stakes. What if full mastery unlocked unimagined freedom? As rains finally came, washing the city clean, Elias stood in the downpour, reflecting. The drought had been a forge, ignoring its trials, hammering his soul into stronger form. The story flowed onward, philosophical depth increasing, toward horizons of transformative insight. With the rain's return, life in the city revived, green shoots piercing the earth like promises kept. Elias, emerging from the drought's crucible, carried a refined power, the art of ignoring now woven into his essence. No longer tentative, it was a deliberate mindset, guiding his steps with the calm authority of one who knows his domain. Yet the world, ever dynamic, presented new layers to test this resolve. A festival followed the rains, the streets alive with music and merriment. Invitations poured in, friends urging Elias to join the revelry. "Loosen your grip," they said. "Life demands celebration." The allure was tangible, the warmth of shared joy, the release from discipline's rigor. Emotional pull intensified, memories of isolation stirring. But Elias discerned the fleeting nature of such highs, ignoring the calls to indulge without purpose. Instead, he attended selectively, engaging in meaningful exchanges while withdrawing from excess. This balance heightened his presence, making moments richer. Lucius, sensing Elias's maturation, shared advanced meditations. Stoicism is not withdrawal from life, but engagement on your terms. Ignoring clears the path for true focus. They discussed responsibility, the duty to one's character amid societal pressures. Elias applied this to his trade, ignoring short-term gains for long-term mastery. A wealthy patron offered a lucrative but hasty commission. Elias declined, prioritizing quality. The patron, impressed by his integrity, returned with greater respect. This reinforced the building tension, a quiet force of self-mastery unfolding. Introspection layered deeper. Alone by the forge, Elias questioned, what fears linger that ignoring unmasks? Vulnerability surfaced, the human need for approval, tempered now by wisdom. He journaled extensively, reflections building like strata in rock. each layer strengthening resilience. Emotional intelligence peaked in subtle ways, reading unspoken cues, responding with controlled energy. Challenges escalated. A community dispute arose over land, factions forming. Elias, known for fairness, was drawn in. Voices clamored for his allegiance, pressure mounting. Ignoring partisanship, he advocated reason, his silence on biases speaking volumes. The resolution favored equity, his influence evident. This deepened philosophical depth, embodying Stoic virtues in action. Curiosity propelled further. Elias explored silence's role in inner control, practicing extended retreats. Insights emerged. Ignoring external validation fosters self-reliance. The narrative intensified, emotional arcs building toward climax. What transformations await in full embrace? As seasons turned, Elias's life reflected lived wisdom, a continuous journey of growth. The power of ignoring, once a tool, became a philosophy, guiding with mature thoughtfulness. The years unfolded like scrolls revealing ancient truths. Elias's path a testament to the enduring power of ignoring as a Stoic cornerstone. Now an elder in the city, his forge a place of pilgrimage for those seeking not just tools, but wisdom. The emotional crescendo peaked in quiet culminations, moments where discipline yielded profound freedom. A young apprentice approached, echoing Elias's former self, entangled in others' expectations. "How do I find peace amid the noise?" he asked. Elias, with calm authority, shared, "Ignore not to escape, but to embrace what matters yourself, your choices." Through guidance, he demonstrated, ignoring distractions to focus on teaching. The apprentice grew, mirroring the transformative arc. In reflection, Elias saw the journey's arc, from reactive youth to masterful sage. Ignoring had built resilience, emotional strength, self-mastery. It was lived wisdom, a mindset of inner control, silence fostering depth. The conclusion settled like dusk. In ignoring the inconsequential, we honor our essence, navigating life with disciplined focus. This power, subtle yet profound, transforms pressure into purpose. If these reflections resonate, carry them into your day's practice, this quiet strength, and let it build you. For more such journeys into Stoicism, subscribe to Built by Stoicism. Together, we cultivate inner growth, one thoughtful step at a time.